Pre-game coverage continues here on Zaleski Sports with Pittsville Panthers baseball manager Justin Rayburn. Coach, you take on the Johnson Creek Blue Jays Tuesday at 9 a.m. When is the last time your guys played a baseball game at 9 in the morning?
I believe when we played down in Belmont early on in the year, we had a 10 o'clock game, but not 9 a.m. That's pretty early.
How do you go about adjusting things or not for a 9 a.m. start? You're probably at the ballpark at before 8 a.m. How does that work?
Yeah, I don't, we didn't really practice in the morning necessarily the week leading up to it. We wanted to kind of stay in our normal routine. We're going to get up early that morning and take batting practice. You don't want the kids just rolling out of bed and heading to the stadium. So we'll get up pretty early. Like I said, we played a 10 a.m. game earlier this year where we spent the night in a hotel and went to Belmont for an early game. So I don't know. I don't think it really seemed to bother the boys. Sectionals is also a 10 a.m. game. So, I think once the boys are up and they get them moving, I think it's not a big deal.
Let's talk about your conference. A lot of teams at state are able to say, yeah, you know what, my conference helped me prepare for this. I'll take your answer on it. First, though, you and Pacelli account for 22 wins in conference. You're both at state. Congratulations. The two of you account for 22. The rest of your conference combined gets to 20. How did the rest of the conference help you this season?
I think anytime you're in a conference game, you're probably throwing your better pitchers. Baseball's baseball. You can't take anyone for granted. I've said before, baseball is probably the sport that has the most upsets. Like if you have a team that's significantly better than you in football or basketball, it's pretty tough to win. But baseball, you get the ball to bounce your way a few times, and it matters. So I think Pacelli and us is always a good duel. We had a real battle with Rosholt early on in the year. They always play us tough when we go over to Rosholt. So between that and then all the non-conference, we schedule a pretty tough non-conference schedule too, and I think that kind of gets us prepared for the playoffs.
You and I have known each other for a while. A matter of fact, on the screen now, we'll put up a picture of you out in the front lawn with Dad, 2-3 years old, with the big barrel bat. So you've been a baseball guy since the beginning. I want to talk about Dawson Luther, baseball guy. Have you come across a baseball guy like Dawson Luther before?
Dawson's one of those kids. Sometimes you see stuff on social media about like what's the best recipe to be a good baseball player, and sometimes people will say, grab a bat and a ball and go out in your yard and, play with your brothers or play with your buddies for a while. That's kind of the type of kid Dawson is. He's grown up playing out in the yard with his brothers. He's one of those kids that you'll find a bat anywhere we're at, wiffle ball bat, anything. He's just kind of one of those old school throwback kind of small town baseball guys that any type of ball, any type of bat, he's there ready to play.
He's your all-time hits leader in school history. He just finished up his junior year, so he's an incoming senior. Still got baseball yet to play, but of course, at state, a big check mark off of Dawson's career to-do list for sure, and the rest of the guys. So let's talk about some of the rest of the guys and help us set up your pitching lineup as you head into this game.
Yeah, so Logan Zickert's kind of been our senior leader this year. He really went out and performed well against Blair Taylor. We were going up against a pretty good pitcher from Blair Taylor and Tavian Schrammick, and Logan came out on top 2-1. He's also been one of our leaders at the plate. So we've been pretty happy with Logan, and I think all of our guys. This is just a hardworking group of guys. They do a lot of stuff outside of normal practice time. They played a lot of summer baseball. I think this is kind of the ultimate goal. It's why they put in that extra time.
At the high school level, we seem to see this every year. You get to state, everybody's good. The teams that play well, the teams that advance, they always seem to get something extra out of the bottom of the order. So take us through that, and what is your expectations, say, 6 through 9 headed into this game?
So we talked about this before the sectional. When we were getting ready to go up against Schrammick from Blair Taylor, you look at his numbers, and I think he was averaging like 13 or 14 strikeouts a game. And so, you're not going to win a lot of games when you're striking out 14 times at the plate. So our approach was, even the bottom of our order guys, move back in the box so you can see the ball a little longer, shorten up and put it in play. The bottom of our order did that. I think in that game, I think he averages like 14 a game. I think we had 6 strikeouts in that game. So for our bottom guys to put the ball in play, puts a little pressure on the opposing defense. And then it kind of sets the table for the top guys, like a Logan and a Dawson.
Your home baseball diamond, high quality field. You've had some things come in, some improvements lately. There is though a transition from the dirt infield to the grass infield, which you'll see today. How do you help your guys prepare for that?
Yeah, we talked about that a little bit. One thing about this grass infield, it's not like the grass infields that you see in our area. It's very well maintained. I actually just we're at the stadium right now, and I just kind of talked to the boys about if you watch when the ball hits the lip or it goes through the grass, it plays fast. It's a nice short cut grass. I mean, it's a minor league ballpark, so it's very well maintained. The bounces are true, and so I think one thing I told them is think of it as the ball playing kind of like it does on our skin infield. It's going to play fast. The ball's going to stay down. So we don't see a ton of grass infields. We have seen some turf this year, so I think the ball's going to bounce like it does off of turf. It's going to move quick.
Some of those places, we won't name them, but some guys call them goat pastures. So I hear you, Coach. I feel you there.
I've said before, there's a lot of grass infields that get worse bounces than our dirt infield. At least the dirt infield's got a true bounce,
I completely agree, and we've seen it for sure. Especially in the smaller schools in rural Wisconsin, no doubt about that. Let's finish up by telling us what you know about your opponent, Johnson Creek Blue Jays, being the other dugout away from you. What do you know about the Blue Jays coming into this game?
Well, it's interesting because with us and Edgar and Pacelli, we're all within about a 45-mile radius by way of crow flies, and we've all played each other, so we kind of know a little bit about each other, and then. Johnson Creek's kind of the outlier just because they're a ways away. Not a ton of common opponents. I do know they can hit. If you look at their stats, they're very good offensively. It looks like they got a couple of pitchers that are very similar statistically. So I told the boys, I said, when you get down to this level, nobody's bad. Everybody down here is good. They're down here for a reason. So I expect Johnson Creek to be just as good as everybody else we've been playing. The big thing is, we're down here for a reason too, though. That's one thing I told the boys. We're down here because we're playing good ball. And so, we belong here. Johnson Creek belongs here. Edgar and Pacelli belong here. I think, this year, I'm not sure there's one team that is like the Oliva Strums where, everybody's trying to avoid them like last year. I think this year that you got it's a pretty good mix of four teams and it should be, pretty good bracket here.
Let me take a different angle at it. At some other sports, football, scouting is important. If the defensive lineman is angling this way, this is probably what they're going to do. If the receiver is over here, basketball, left-handed dribbler, we can scout that. Coming into your game against Johnson Creek, is it just a matter of we just need to play good Pittsville Panthers baseball?
That's kind of been our message in any big game. You can have all the scouting reports you want, but in baseball, if you don't play your type of ball, you don't play good, clean baseball, you're not going to win too many games. And sometimes you don't want to get too caught up in a scouting report. Sometimes it's more about worrying about yourself than worrying about the other team. Pick the ball up off the ground, throw the ball to first base, put the ball in play. It's kind of doing the little things. We actually just had a practice earlier this week where we went back to like stuff that we were doing day one of practice. We took the gloves off. We took ground balls with our gloves off. Kind of did some flip in the batting cage, just kind of some basic day one stuff, just because I think it's important you can't get away from that stuff just because you're playing in mid-June here.
Yeah, in the big leagues, they almost carry clipboards in their back pockets. I think that's what a lot of folks appreciate about high school baseball is these kids just go out and they hustle, and you hope that they play hard. Pittsville manager Justin Rayburn, best of luck.
Thanks a lot. Appreciate it.